Now, very pleased that we will now start by hearing from the European Commission. And we have the Director for Mobility and Energy Intensive Industries from DG Grow. Please welcome Joaquim Nunes de Almeida. Joaquim, over to you.
Thank you very much. I hope I'll start with a smile on my face and in a good atmosphere. So, yes, I've been Director for Mobility and Energy Intensive Industries since April this year. With the European Green Deal, the Commission announced its intention to make the EU the world's first climate-neutral continent by 2050. And that ambition, together with the strengthened target of at least 55% net reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, is enshrined in EU legislation through the climate law. Transport sector has a key role to play to meet our climate targets. Transport emissions would have to decrease by 90% by 2050. Mm-hmm. And nearly all cars and vans on the road would have to be zero emission by that time. This is one of the key conclusions of the Climate Target Plan, also reiterated in the Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy. However, this is a challenge as road transport is the only sector where emissions have been increasing since 1990. And this is true especially with regard to emissions from heavy-duty vehicles, driven mainly by growing road transport demand and currently relying almost entirely on diesel fuel. Now, while road transport is responsible for approximately a fifth of total EU greenhouse gas emissions, heavy-duty vehicles produce about a quarter of CO2 emissions from road transport and 6% of the total EU greenhouse gases emissions alone. So again, a quarter of the CO2 emissions from road transport and 6% of the total EU greenhouse gas emissions alone. So a reduction of transport emissions has to accelerate, and transport must contribute to reaching our climate objectives more decisively. Natural gas vehicles have a role to play in this transition, especially when fueled with biomethane. In fact, our emission rules already cover natural gas vehicles and will continue to do so in the future. And we're happy that there are already several types of natural gas light and heavy-duty vehicles offered for sale in Europe, as well as more than 4,500 refilling stations. Turning on to Fit for 55. So in July, we proposed the Fit for 55 package to reach a 55% emissions reduction by 2030. This is our blueprint for a deep transformation of our economies and societies. We can only achieve our emissions reduction target by 2030 if we accelerate our efforts across all sectors of the economy. There are a number of different pieces of EU legislation relevant for the decarbonization of road transport. The package consists of a comprehensive set of interconnected proposals covering areas such as climate, energy, buildings, agriculture, and of course, transport. They represent a fully consistent and coherent balance between carbon pricing, targets, standards, and support measures to reach our increased ambitions. On CO2 standards for light-duty vehicles, the Commission proposal for more ambitious CO2 emissions targets for new cars and vans. Well, we have an average CO2 emission reduction as compared to 2021, which will be from 1st January 2030, 55% for cars and 50% for vans, as from the 1st of January 2035, 100% for cars and 100% for vans. This means that from 2035 onwards, all new cars and vans registered in the EU will need to be zero emission. The strengthened standards will contribute to reducing CO2 emissions of the sector, and it will also lead to cost savings for consumers over the vehicle lifetime for both first and second user. Less CO2 means less fuel spent. Now, do we have other relevant policy tools? Yes, we do. We've got the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation, which will ensure that investments in the necessary recharging and refueling infrastructure will ramp up. And the goal is to install a sufficient number of points in all member states that are easy to access and use. We've got as well the proposed revisions of the emissions trading system, and the Renewable Energy Directive will also help decarbonize the power generation. The EU emission trading system remains a cornerstone of EU climate legislation in reducing emissions in a cost-effective manner. The Commission proposal aims to strengthen the existing ETS and apply emissions trading to new sectors, road transport and buildings, in which emission reductions remain a challenge. It will ensure a fair contribution across the whole economy while ensuring complementary pricing instruments to address the challenges linked to the decarbonization of these sectors. On renewables, the Commission proposes to increase the binding target of sources in the EU's energy mix to 40%, including the promotion of the uptake of renewable fuels with additional targets. To ensure that renewable and low-carbon fuels are put in the market, we proposed increasing the ambition levels of renewables in transport by, first, setting a 13% greenhouse gas intensity reduction target by 2030. Second, by increasing the sub-target for advanced biofuels from at least 0.2% in 2022 to 0.5% in 2025 and 2.2% in 2030. And thirdly, by introducing a 2.6% sub-target for renewable hydrogen and synthetic fuels. Now, turning to heavy-duty vehicle CO2 standards and their review. Nowadays, we count on a key policy tool to bring CO2 emissions down, the heavy-duty vehicle CO2 standards, a cost-effective instrument that channel investments into clean and innovative technologies, support the sector competitiveness, and offer economic benefits to consumers. We will propose a revision of the HDV heavy-duty vehicle CO2 standards by the end of 2022. A public consultation is expected to be launched by the end of the year. The level of ambition, and we would like to hear your views in that respect, the level of ambition of the standards as well as the incentives for zero and low emission vehicles, but also the role to be played by renewable and low carbon fuels will be analyzed with attention in the corresponding impact assessment, seeking how further CO2 emission reductions could be achieved in view of the increased climate ambition. Euro 7. So, rules for type approval of emissions from natural gas vehicles have always been an important part of our rule book and will continue to be so in the future, especially now that we're working on Euro 7. Euro 7 is another element of the Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy and Zero Pollution Action Plan. Since 2018, we have been working diligently and inclusively with more than 250 experts in the Advisory Group on Vehicles Emission Standards, NGVA, to gain a broad understanding of what can be technically achieved in terms of emission reductions for cars, vans, buses, and lorries. We have launched 6 independent scientific studies for a total value of €6.75 million. that increase our understanding of the problems and possible solutions. We're now finalizing our impact assessment, which uses the same predictions for the fleet as the Fit for 55 package. When considering the future legislation, we see there could be ample room for simplification of the rules, for rendering pollutant limits and testing conditions more demanding, and we would ensure that these limits are technology and fuel neutral, and that emissions performance could be guaranteed throughout the whole vehicle life. We know that technologies to achieve these results are largely available on the market already today, and it is obvious that vehicles fueled by natural gas, in preference by biogas, is one of the technology choices, in particular for the heavy-duty sector. In the scenarios underpinning the Fit for 55 package, we predict that around 8.7 million heavy-duty vehicles will be registered in the EU in 2050, or approximately 11% of the total HGV fleet running on biomethane or e-gas. For what concerns Euro 7, all these vehicles will have to respect the same rules as all other vehicles, technology neutrality, including limiting the most dangerous part of ultra-fine particles, i.e. those that are less than 23 nanomillimeters, and limiting fuel leaks that lead to methane emissions. So to sum up, in the coming years, we will see a significant transformation of the automotive sector, including in terms of environmental performance of vehicles. Electric vehicles will rapidly grow to be a large part of the vehicle fleet, but we believe that there's room for other fuels and technologies, such as natural gas, especially in the transition period from combustion to alternative powertrains. We trust that your collaboration with the automotive industry will ensure that natural gas vehicles are as clean as any other vehicle and have a place in the future. And you can always count on continuous exchange of ideas with us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention.
Joaquim, thank you very much. And actually, if I believe you are still there, let's just ask you a. Oh no, let's see if we can have a quick chat with Joaquim, who I believe is still with us. Fantastic. Thank you very much for staying with us just for a moment. You very clearly laid out what you expect the industry to do. I wrote down on my piece of paper here, a focus on heavy duty vehicles. It is obvious that they must contribute to what you need to do in this sector. My question to you on behalf of the questions that we're getting online is, what can you do for the industry? And do you foresee a time when you will be classifying biogas vehicles as zero emission vehicles?
Well, what are we doing for industry? I mean, we're putting forward a pathway on mobility. We've done one already on tourism and another one on energy-intensive industries together with all stakeholders, member states, industry, NGOs, other stakeholders, get together and see what we could all together do to improve greening, digitalization, and resilience of the value chains, which is also a big issue right now. This is a process that we intend to start quite soon. As far as bio-originated gases are concerned, as I've said, I think we see a role for them, and we welcome their complementary participation in the effort of transforming the industries. We all know that it is harder to electrify heavy-duty vehicles than light-duty vehicles. Although talking to some automobile manufacturers, I mean, there are also interesting experiments towards electrification, also for heavy duty. I would say that the goal is decarbonization. Whatever technology serves to get there, is a good thing, worth having a look at. It all depends on their affordability. So we're looking at everything with a lot of interest. What counts is the contribution to the reduction of emissions outside.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to the very specific question that was asked online, I mean, classifying originating biogas vehicles as zero emission.
I don't know. I'll have to. I don't know what the line of the Commission, if there is a line of the Commission yet, as far as that issue is concerned. I'd have to inform myself better before getting back to you. I can't reply to that specific question.
No, not to worry. I did notice also that you were saying that I don't think the word you used was consultations, but certainly conversations with the industry. I mean, how do you see those going forward? What's the biggest challenge that you see as you need to move forward in the way that you do? What might be the biggest sticking point?
Well, the biggest sticking point, I think, is the provision of affordable decarbonized energy to industry. That I would say, I mean, we've got industries are increasingly in a stranglehold between, on the one hand, the high carbon price, and on the other, the lack of enough decarbonized energy. And we have to make a massive effort in order to, prop up and deliver the decarbonized energy sources that European industry needs in order to survive and thrive.
I mean, do you see this almost as a fight for those resources, those, the actual material coming through?
Well, I mean, yes, there's that, but there's also a big administrative effort. I think that the technologies are already there. The question is how to make them affordable. But optimists, and we have to be optimists, all indicate that the more you use technologies, the more the prices go down. It's what happened in renewables. It's what people expect to happen on hydrogen too. But there's the issue of the scramble for resources. You're right. I mean, most of the novel forms of energy provision or industrial processes require new materials and the refinery of new materials, and we haven't got enough of them. They exist, but they have to be exploited. But they can't be exploited tomorrow. You have to develop projects in order for them to happen. But also, the whole issue of permitting of all energy-related projects is a huge administrative bottleneck to make the whole thing work. So we have to accelerate much more all the projects we need to get all the energy sources, energy storage and energy transmission that we need to get our industry to keep working at affordable levels.
As you say, we will remain optimistic. That was the phrase that you.
Thank you very much. I think I could stay another 10 minutes with you. I'll have to leave you in a few seconds.
No. You're absolutely right. Joaquim Nunes de Almeida, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Bye.